Senator, thank you very much for spending the time to have this conversation. It's good to be with you. So you've come out for regime change in Iran as distinct from taking out the nuclear sites. What does regime change look like in Iran? Somebody else in charge. How do you get there? Look, that ultimately has to be a popular uprising from the people. And it's not a complicated question. Is America better off with a country that has a leader who hates us and wants to kill us, or to have a country with a leader who likes us and wants to be friends with us? And definitely the latter's better, of course, yeah? And so that's not a complicated statement. Look, I believe you look across the world when you have countries that have dictators that are viciously anti-America. Venezuela, Maduro hates us. Would we be better off with Maduro out of power? Absolutely. I want our enemies out of power, and I want our friends in power. I could not agree more. The question is, how do you get there? Of course, we've been trying to kill Maduro for quite some time. We have troops there. I don't know that we've been trying to kill Maduro. We have. And I think you know that. And, oh yeah, I don't know that. Okay, well, as a statement of fact, we have. So we do have massive sanctions. We try to pressure him out of all. Yeah, I was not aware of that. I'm just saying there's a lot of pressure coming from various parts of the U.S. government on that government, and it's still there. Yeah, same, the country of our ancestors, Cuba, 1959, we were working on that, hasn't worked. So we both agree it's hard to do. It absolutely is hard. And look, I think you're reasonable to ask, how do we produce that? And I think there's a distinction between what your objective is and the means to get it. There are all sorts of things. I would say we would be better off. We'd be better off in China without Xi there. Should we invade China and topple Xi? Of course not. We're better off with no national debt. There are lots of things. But it's good to say, all right, what are our objectives, Ray? So with the Ayatollah in Iran, saying you're for regime change, I don't view as complicated. I mean, the guy literally leads mobs chanting death to America. So that's not good. Definitely not good. But the reason I think it's important to get a little more detailed about how that might happen is because there's military action in progress, which we're supporting. And the president has said clearly, including last night, that he is focused on eliminating the capacity of the Iranian government to produce nuclear weapons. You are saying we need to use military force to effect regime change. I have not said that. Oh, I must. No, I have not said that once. I don't think we need to use military force to do regime change. I said I support it. I would like to see it happen. You asked me how should it happen? A popular uprising. What I've advocated for. All right, let's step back a second. You and I, we've known each other a long time. I would say we agree on about 80% of the things on Earth. For sure. And there are a lot of things, and then we can get into the nitty-gritty of foreign policy as much as you want. There are a lot of things on which you and I agree, not just a little bit, but violently. I totally agree. I was rooting for you in your last campaign for well. Thank you. Look, you have been heroic on the border. You have been one of the clearest and best voices in the whole country on securing the border and on the absolute crisis we're facing. And in Texas, I see it and live it every day. In COVID, in fact, you may recall in the middle of the COVID lockdown, I was out walking my dog when the whole world was shut down and we were living in lunatic times. And I called you and said, Tucker, your nightly monologues are the single best thing on television. Like things, I watch them like an injection of crack. Okay, I'm mixing my metaphor because you don't inject crack, but you get what I'm just trying. No, I mean, you were standing up and speaking like, what the hell are we doing in a way that we desperately needed? And so whether it's securing the border, whether it's the insanity of COVID lockdowns and the vaccine mandates, whether it is the Second Amendment or the First Amendment, you and I agree on a ton of stuff. The 20% where we disagree, I do think is meaningful. And it's mostly in the foreign policy space. And what I would say, if you'll allow me to get a little theoretical, and then I'm happy to get specific, yes? For a long time, people had perceived two different poles of Republican foreign policy. There have been interventionists, and those have been people like John McCain and Lindsey Graham, George W. Bush, and there have been isolationists. And then the most prominent of those have been Ron Paul and Rand Paul, and there are others. And then people perceive those are the two choices. You got to be one or the other. I've always thought both were wrong. I don't agree with either one. the way I view my own foreign policy, I'm with you, by the way, for whatever it's worth. I agree with you. Okay, good. I don't know who set up that binary, but there are lots of choices, actually. I mean, people sort of naturally fall into, I think they want to classify people, and they're like, okay, you're one or the other, and you got to be all or nothing. And the interventionists, it seems, have never seen a country they didn't want to invade, and that doesn't make any sense to me. And the isolationists, I think, don't take the threats to America seriously, and I think that's naive and it doesn't work. And so my view, I consider myself a third point on the triangle. And what I describe that as is that I am a non-interventionist hawk, which sounds a little weird, but what do I mean by that? I mean the central touch point for U.S. foreign policy and for any question of military intervention should be the vital national security interest of the United States. How does this make America safer? How does this protect Americans? If it does, we should be strong. And actually, another way of conceiving what I'm saying, I'm speaking theoretically, but Reagan referred to it as peace through strength. And actually, I think Donald Trump's foreign policy is very much what I'm describing, a non-interventionist hawk, where he understands that, and I think this is historically true, the best way to avoid war is being strong. That weakness and isolationism, I think, encourages war. So, going back to regime change, where you started in Iran, so just to say, I don't think I disagree with anything you've said, so it may not be that far apart, really, because you said that the single criterion for making decisions about America's foreign policy is America's national interest. Yes, that's it. Yeah, which is also America first. That's another way of putting that. I think that's the definition of it. Yeah.